And outside the box reviews, we are taking a look at the Universal Select Wave 1 Mummy figure, which is kind of odd because I've already reviewed the Universal Select Wave 1 Mummy figure, but this is, I guess, the standard release because this is the one that goes out to comic shops or specialty stores of any kind, while the version I previously reviewed was a Toys R Us exclusive. So even though this figure to me feels more like it'd be the exclusive version, it's these versions I've reviewed before that come with usually some kind of larger display piece or more accessories. They're actually the standard release and Toys R Us just gets a cheaper exclusive, which usually isn't too different than just a toned down version of the deluxe version. However, here we get a completely unique figure. It's an almost entirely re-sculpted version of the mummy, and it comes with a giant sarcophagus. So let's crack open the crypt and take a closer look at this figure. And the sarcophagus that comes with this figure is truly a work of art. Very, very beautifully done. Now, it's not entirely movie accurate. The sarcophagus seen in the film actually bears a very strong resemblance to Boris Karloff, and it's actually defaced. Specifically, they show that the standard beard that's usually on here is chipped away when they're basically burying this mummy in shame. The jewels and things are scraped off of it very hastily. So this being a very pristine looking sarcophagus, not exactly movie accurate, but still very nicely done. The face on there is beautifully sculpted. The headdress is great. Arms look very nice. There's a lot of great subtle paint details, feeling very Egyptian with the muted colors. The only place where the colors aren't as muted is this little wrist bangle here, but everything else has a very nice muted tone to it. Even the gold is kind of understated. We have the hieroglyphics on the front. It's kind of scaled texture to it. It's just a very, very, very nice looking sarcophagus. The detail does continue onto the sides so that you can get a full 360 look at it, and it's just well detailed throughout. The only place where it doesn't have a lot of detail is the bottom, but I'm guessing that's probably how they would have been made anyway. There are some cool cracks going through it. And then on the underside, we have the actual base where the body is laying, giving it kind of this very nice stone look. Some good paint details with cracks going through it as well. Looks very dirty and very old. Very cool. The back does continue on the detail, but the copyright stamps kind of take that down a notch, making it look not quite so nice. But you're not really going to look at the back too often. Really just going to focus on the front of this. And you can kind of see around here, the lid doesn't fit completely in place. You can see there's a gap on mine. So it's a little hard to get it to fit exactly. But if you play with it, it will kind of slide into place. But it also feels like you put one section down, another section pops out a bit. But if you do pop it open, which should unleash the mummy's curse, so I should probably be a little worried about this. But you can see even the inside of the lid has a very nice stone texture to it, all nice cracks going through. The gold paint gets a little sloppy at places, but just a very nice looking piece. And then the inside of the casket. This is actually one area where I feel like they skimped a bit, where it would have been really cool to have some more detail. Now it's given a nice brown paint job, making it just kind of look dark and ominous. But the way the plastic is molded, you can see there's like 6 little rings or dots inside here, which kind of distract from the look of it being made of stone. And one detail I would have really liked is in the film, there are hieroglyphics going around on the inside. I know that's where Imhotep's name is actually listed, where the archaeologists get it from. So it would have been kind of cool to get those hieroglyphics on the inside here, but still a very, very impressive piece. I don't know whether to consider this an accessory or a figure unto itself, but it is beautifully done. My only complaint about this sarcophagus is the thickness of it. It is a very thick piece, much thicker than I actually imagined it would be. But if we do lie the figure down alongside it, you can see it's about as deep as it needs to be to hold the entire figure. So it does make sense that it is so deep. It just wasn't something I had anticipated when I picked it up. I thought it fit very nicely along the back row of my Universal Monsters display, but the considerable size, especially once you add the lid in, which of course I'll probably have next to it, not exactly on it, but it is a fairly deep piece, so you do have to have that in mind when you're picking out shelf real estate for it. The figure itself, not nearly as exciting of a piece. We do get a decent Boris Karloff likeness, not incredibly like the man, but a nice attempt at recreating Jack Pierce's makeup. He's got his eyes closed just as he's seen inside the tomb. His hair slicked back, some nice subtle paint job going on there. For black and white characters, it also is a little daunting to see them colorized. I feel like it doesn't work quite as well as they really hope it would most of the time, but they did a decent job here. I am kind of curious. I don't remember this figure is listed as having Boris Karloff's likeness. I seem to remember it was, but if they did have his likeness, I'm kind of disappointed they didn't transfer it over to the sarcophagus. But it looks enough like Boris, I'm gonna guess they did get the rights to use his likeness. Now the body here is the exact same body we got with the previous version of the Mummy. The entire torso wrapped in bandages, the legs coming down here. This is all something we've gotten with the Toys R Us version, even the peg holes at the bottom of the feet. It's very nicely done. I love the dark kind of coloration they brought in here, the browns and the blacks to really make it look old and worn. The sculpting is decent. You don't really feel like every individual bandage is sculpted in, but there's a nice effect of him being wrapped up. You even see kind of some of the ends coming out around his knees. It's very good looking. And then his arms are unique. If you turn them around, you can kind of see the seams here. On the original figure, they were on pin and socket joints. Here, they're kind of just glued into place with his arms crossed across his chest. But these are uniquely sculpted. These are brand new for this figure. Same with the head. The head has shut eyes, which is different from the Toys R Us release, but these crossed arms are very unique to this figure and work very well as having him inside the sarcophagus. I wouldn't really have wanted him to be an awake mummy yet. I feel like coming with this accessory, this is the necessary way to have him. He even does have the ring on his finger, which is very, very nice. For articulation, he has a swivel at the neck. And I'm done. Record time for articulation on a figure. And here we have the two releases of the Mummy. This Toys R Us exclusive on the left and this deluxe / standard edition, I guess, on the right. And you can see they are fairly different, except for that body being the same. The heads are different and the arms are different. So they're definitely unique figures, but maybe not unique enough for everybody. And here we have the Mummy alongside two other versions of Boris Karloff we've gotten from Universal Select. On the left, we have the very recent Son of Frankenstein figure. And on the right, we have a Boris Karloff out of makeup portraying Dr. Jekyll from Abbott and Costello meet Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And you can see Dr. Jekyll and the Mummy are very much in scale with one another. Frankenstein's monster is definitely a much larger figure, though he is wearing those platform shoes. So if we swap out the Son of Frankenstein figure for the Series 2 Frankenstein's monster, this is definitely a lot more in scale with this figure. He's still a bit taller, but he has the platform shoes, so I think they'd basically be the same height. It is kind of strange that Universal Select has gone with two different scales for this line, but if increasing the size gives us this increased articulation, I really don't have a problem with it. And speaking of the new Universal Select style using increased size and articulation for these figures, the kind of elephant in the room while recording this video is they recently announced they are redoing the Mummy, a Mummy 2.0 figure from Universal Select coming this fall. This, like Frankenstein's monster and Creature from the Black Lagoon before it, is going to get increased articulation and a better sculpt, as well as a brand new deluxe display base. But the one thing it doesn't look like it's going to come with is an interchangeable head with the eyes shut, or a sarcophagus for that matter. So I think this figure is actually still worth picking up. I think the original Toys R Us exclusive is going to have very little merit soon. There are a couple items from its display base that I think are actually kind of cool if you're willing to pry them off the display base. But this figure is all about the display base, and it is wonderfully done. Even though I do assume they're going to make this new Mummy figure larger, I still hope he's capable of fitting in this sarcophagus, because that would be really, really cool. So this figure gets a very, very weak recommend just because he's not for everybody by a long shot, but if you are a Universal horror junkie like I am, you're going to want to pick up this version because it's just really well done for what it is. Not a very articulated action figure, but it's gonna look great alongside the rest of your Universal monsters, depicting the iconic scene of Boris Karloff as the Mummy in the sarcophagus, which, if you watch the movie, that's most of when he's in the bandages. When Karloff leaves the casket, you really only see arms or legs or something. You don't really get a full-on shot of him in the full Mummy makeup. So in a way, this is the more iconic look. But that being said, I'm thrilled we were getting another figure of the Mummy in the bandages with the improved articulation. But where the hell is an Ardith Bay figure? I complained about it back when they did the Mini-Mates. I felt like they should have included an Ardith Bay instead of Frank Wemple, because that is Karloff for most of the movie. And looking back, nobody has made an Ardith Bay in the 7 or 8 inch scale. Sideshow's only done the Mummy in bandages. Diamond Select's only done the Mummy in bandages. And I understand this is the most iconic look, but as a fan of the movie, I would love to get that other very, very cool look of Karloff in plastic. Make sure you check me out on Instagram, username Outside the Box Reviews. Also follow me on Facebook, link below. And until next time, death, eternal punishment for anyone who opens this video. Or maybe not, that really wouldn't help my subscriber count.